Reading with your kids.
Hola, niho, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and so very honored and so happy that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. We are excited to welcome our guest today. It's Cindy Williams Schrauben. She is here to celebrate her debut picture book. It's called This Could Be You. Before we invite Cindy into the studio, we want to encourage all the authors that are listening to the show to please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. There is an Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. If you click that button, you can learn how we can help you celebrate your book to the world. It's really hard to believe, but there are literally thousands of books published every single month, standing out amongst that crowd of books, especially if you are an independent or self-published author, or if you're an author published by a tiny publishing house. It's really difficult. Well, you don't have to do it alone. We would love to help you. You can be a guest here on the podcast. Sit down and have a long-form conversation, letting the world know all about your book, your inspiration, what kind of conversations you think families can have while reading your book. You can also submit your book to our Certified Great Read panel, and if they believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read, and with that status comes a number of really powerful tools to help your book stand out and to let families know that your book is worthy of their consideration. You can also take part in our monthly promotion programs, and we'll celebrate your book through commercials on the podcast, messages to our 75,000 plus social media followers, and also give you visibility on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. Learn all about these opportunities by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, clicking on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. Joining us right now from the beautiful state of Michigan, our guest is here today to celebrate her debut picture book. It's called This Can Be You. Please welcome to the show, Cindy Williams Schrauben. Hey, Cindy, how are you?
I'm great, Jed. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on. This sounds like a fun book. Tell us all about This Could Be You.
Well, This Could Be You helps kids to believe in themselves, to dream, and to achieve using growth mindset strategies. And I wanted all kids to be able to see themselves in the pages of this book, so it doesn't have one character, but every page features a diverse group of kids doing all different kinds of things. It talks a little bit about occupations and what they might dream about doing someday and what they can do to achieve those dreams.
Awesome. So talk to us a little bit about what you mean when you use the phrase growth mindset.
Great. I'd love to. Growth mindset. The term was coined by Carol Dweck out of, I think, Princeton. And she talks about the belief that we are malleable. Our talents and our strengths aren't something that we're born with and that don't change, but something that we can grow and improve as we go on in life. So, for instance, if a child falls off of their bike, instead of just quitting and saying, I'm not a bike rider, I'm done, I quit, that would be a fixed mindset. That would be the belief that you are what you are and you can do what you can do, and that's the end of it. And a growth mindset, on the other hand, helps us to realize that mistakes help us learn, failures are stepping stones, and that we can continue to improve as we go along.
I love that. It's certainly something I have learned. I have lots of scars and scrapes and bumps and bruises that I have learned from. I have a lot of bumps and bruises and scrapes and scars that I didn't really learn much from, but they were fun experiencing. we have, variety, having published over 1,300 episodes of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We've had lots of people with lots of different points of view on the podcast. And one of the points of view that people have expressed is, we want to let kids know that they're enough. It's so they're just good enough as they are. And I believe that. But I don't want kids to. I'm trying to make sure I don't say something that's offensive to somebody. But I just want kids to know, yes, you are awesome and you're wonderful just because you, and you can become whatever else you want to be.
Yeah, I think there's a really fine balance, because some people look at the growth mindset strategies and the fact that you should achieve and you should keep trying and never give up as the opposite of you're enough. And it's really not, because you're not comparing yourself with growth mindset strategies to anybody else. You're doing your best, right? You're working with what you have and improving and doing the best you can. It wasn't until my daughter was an adult that she told me all those times when I said, just do your best, thinking I was, giving her good advice. She thought that meant be the best, right? She never understood that your best means for you, and that you're unique, and that everybody has their own abilities, their own strengths. But just because you're not the best soccer player doesn't mean you should quit and give up. You might just you love soccer, even though you're terrible at it. So you might want to just keep pushing and keep doing the best you can do and enjoy yourself along the way. You don't have to compare yourself to anybody else.
Yeah.
Growth mindset just means it's all about you.
It's funny you should mention soccer. I played at a very, very high competitive level in high school and in college. But I was that kid, sophomore, junior year of high school, who was just like, I'm terrible. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm not good at this. Until one day, a coach let me know what I was good at. And there was one thing I was really good at, and that was knocking people with the ball down. And once I learned how to do that legally, and I found out from this coach that that was a real skill, boy, did I take that to heart. And I just spent the next 8 years just knocking people around.
That's right. You are working with your own strengths. Not everybody's going to be that star scorer, right? Mm-hmm. But you found what that was. It's a perfect example. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. I come up with good things every once in a while. What was it that makes you so passionate about this?
Well, I was a teacher, and I'm a mom and a grandma. And again, looking back at some of those good-natured things that we say to kids, like, oh, you are so smart, which are great, but forgetting to say you worked really hard to make that happen. It didn't just happen because you're smart. And looking back with old age wisdom, you can see that there's different ways to do that. And I think I wrote this book as much for adults as I did for kids. There's a lot of back matter, giving really, really actionable changes in dialogue. It's as easy as, I don't want to give parents more things to do, right? Mm-hmm. We're all so stressed and worried, but just simple tweaks in language, like when the child says, I can't do that. Well, maybe you can't do it yet, but you're still trying. And different ways that we can use that language, like I failed. Well, but you learned something. What did you learn about that failure? What did you figure out about going next time? Simple ways that, and a lot of it is our own example, right? Coming home from work and talking about, I might as well just quit. This boss is da-da-da-da-da, and having our kids hear that, And I think looking back now, I can see that more clearly because I'm not in the midst of little kids, although my grandkids are still little, but I'm really passionate about helping kids to figure out their own passions and their own dreams and what those are and moving toward them.
Yeah. I love that word, yet. That is such a powerful word. And And just doing something as simple as when you hear your kids or your grandkids say, I can't do that, just say, yet. You can't do it yet.
Yep.
And no big
That's
lecture,
right.
no, just, no, you can't do that yet. And
Yep.
it's my amazing niece, she's gotten to the point now where she's with me and she starts to say, I can't do it. She always, yet. I know. I can't do it yet. I get it.
But it sinks in, right?
Right.
She knows you were going to say that, so it makes her think, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes her think about that. So, yeah, I really, really think that with simple little tweaks, we can change those attitudes even just a little bit and help kids to move on. You know, it's fun. We have, the book has, different occupations. So one page has a trucker and one page has a scientist and another page has an artist. And I also like to stress with the occupation thing is that everybody isn't going to be a doctor. Everybody's not going to be a lawyer, and they shouldn't be, right? We need all kinds of occupations. So I also wanted kids to see people achieving in these books and being happy, doing all different kinds of things.
Yeah. You know, one of the thoughts that just occurred to me is that the pandemic has taught us, thank goodness has taught us something, to go through this. If we went through this and we didn't learn anything, the one thing that the pandemic has taught us is how valuable people in every job are. You know, who would have thought about how important a truck driver is until we go to the supermarket and consistently see empty shelves.
For sure. Kids need to see that. They need to realize that, sometimes people look at a growth mindset and think that means we're pushing kids, push. But it's really not. It's to help them to realize where their passions are and to work toward those, and not you have to be a doctor or you have to be a lawyer or you have to be, something huge. And, it's just a matter of thinking about moving forward. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, I loved to write, but my best friend told me, you're not that great. This isn't that great. I'll fix it for you, and that stayed in my head for years and years and years until I finally realized maybe that paper wasn't so great, but I could improve. I could keep going, and I could still write stories, and I could still, write articles for magazines or whatever. I just needed to keep learning and keep pushing because I wasn't there yet, right? Yeah. So we let people get in our heads sometimes, and we feel like we have to live up to other people, and I just like to help kids realize that doesn't need to be the case.
Yeah. So going back to what you said about just tweaking our language and how beneficial that can be. If you were able to go back in time and to edit what your friend said to you, how would you have changed her words to become more supportive of you as a writer?
Well, I probably would say now, well, help me fix it. Help me realize what I need to do and get better. I want to get better at this. I'm not gonna can it, and I want to improve. I want to get better. Help me, show me how to learn from my mistakes.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's another great lesson we can give to our kids, because there's lots of people out there who are really anxious to tell us that our stuff isn't good or isn't good enough. But I think it's really important for us to teach our kids that when somebody says to you, when a boss or a coach or a teacher says to you, this isn't good, they can always ask, well, how can I make it better?
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely. It's so important. And to, especially if it's something you really love. My daughter, has always been an artist of one sort or another. She's a teacher, but she's always loved different art forms. And she had a teacher that and I'm sure it wasn't intentional, and I don't know exactly what the teacher said, and it may just have been the way my daughter heard it, right? We hear things differently too. She heard that she wasn't good at art, and she kind of said from then on, I'm not good at art. I'm not good at it, until she was an adult and she decided to try some of these things again and realized that, she just needed to stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. I'm through the magic of technology, I am able to see Cindy in Michigan, and I can see behind her the cover art for This Can Be You, and the art is really, it's really, really fun. Can you talk a little bit about the illustrations in the book?
Yeah, Julia Seal is the illustrator, and she lives in the UK. And I've never met her, obviously, but we've spoken, and I didn't get to speak with her until, which is very common for authors, until after most of the art was done. And I was amazed at the fact that she really got me. Right? You always worry that the illustrator is going to have a totally different vision of your story than you do, but she has children of all abilities, children of all backgrounds, children of all colors depicted in this book, just as I had hoped would happen. She has boys and girls doing maybe gender jobs that we would normally think of as one gender, opposite doing those. So she's really thought about the diversity, and her characters are just fun. It's so colorful. And so the kids that have seen it, my family and a few other kids, have just really gravitated toward her fun, colorful illustrations. It's funny because I would love to be an artist and do my own illustrations. And so that's something that I work on from now and then, just to push. And before this book was picked up by Cardinal Rural Press, I was doing some illustrations myself, and more for fun than anything else. And it's so funny because a couple of the pages are almost identical to what I had done myself. I'm obviously so much better, but some of the same ideas. So it was really cool.
That is really cool. One of the thoughts I just had is, how can we help our kids be that person in the classroom that encourages everybody to have that growth mindset?
Oh, that's such a good idea. That's such a good question. I think if kids grow up with that language in their homes and grow up with that growth mindset in their homes, that it'll naturally come out of them. I hope that they will naturally say, well, you can't, not yet, to their friends, or will encourage them to keep pushing, because they know that if they do, they will achieve. Other than that, I know a lot of schools are talking about growth mindsets, and I'm hoping that that's making a difference. I have some activities and games that I have on my website. For instance, I have a bingo board that I could be used in a classroom, or it could be used in at the dinner table, where you sit down and say, did you see someone help a friend today? And you mark that off on your bingo board. Or did you see somebody do something hard today? And you mark that off. And so activities like that too, I think help. I think a lot of it is about realizing it and noticing it, right? Mm-hmm. If kids learn to notice those things, or notice when someone needs that help, I'm hoping that it will just naturally happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about encouraging our kids to understand that this can be you, and they can picture themselves, they can envision themselves doing great things in their life. You just celebrated the release of your debut picture book. What other things are you envisioning for your life moving forward?
Well, like I mentioned before, I would really love to illustrate my own book someday. So that's something that I'm working at. Another thing that I'm doing right now is working on a literacy initiative. So I'm trying to get local businesses to sponsor my school visits for those schools that can't afford to make that happen. I'll donate my time if they buy a book for every child. And it could be just a classroom. It could be a whole grade. It could be a whole school. But for those businesses to make an investment in literacy, that's something else that I'm working toward right now.
What an awesome idea. I just love that idea of businesses coming together and supporting literacy. I think it's really important because it makes a statement. You know, our kids see they go to the pizza shop and the different businesses around the community, and if they go into that pizza shop and they say, "Oh, you help bring Cindy to my classroom," that's pretty cool. Reading must be something pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's a community builder too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm hoping that kicks off here before too long.
Yeah. So this is your debut picture book. Do you have book number 2 in the works?
My agent has a couple of things out there. I also have a couple of stories I've written with Corey Rosen Schwartz, and we're getting those out there soon. And it's really funny because when I first started doing this, about 8 years ago, first started working toward it, I wrote several books that were similar to This Could Be You. And at that point in time, publishers were looking for quirky. They were looking for fun. They were looking for not a message, nothing message driven. And so I shifted a little bit, and most of my other stories are that fun, quirky. I have a lot of humor, a lot of puns in my other books. And then when things came around, right, the way that our world is right now, we were wanting to talk to our kids a little bit about some of these important skills that they need to develop. And so it was time to go back to writing things like this that maybe could speak to kids in a different way. So I have quite a variety. I even have some nonfiction. So we'll see what comes out next.
Wonderful. Well, that's a good message for many of the authors that listen to my show, just to remember that if your story isn't selling yet, hang in there.
Very good.
Because at some point,
that's right.
At some point, the publishers are going to be looking for those fun, quirky books again.
Yep, that's right. And that's a big message to the kids too, is that, you know, it took me a while, lots of editing, lots of learning, lots of changing, lots of getting feedback from other people. And it was a journey. Yeah. Well, we're happy that you took that journey and you shared it with us. Where can people go to find out more about This Could Be You? Well, my website is cindyschrauben.com, and I'm on Facebook at Cindy Schrauben. It's SCHRAUBEN, and they can find the book anywhere right now that books are sold. It's online, and for pre-order, it'll be out April 1st. And my publisher's Cardinal World Press, and there's information there too. Awesome. We've had a wonderful time talking about growth mindset, talking about families, how we can be supportive of our kids, and talking about the debut picture book from our guest. It's called This Can Be You, and our guest has been Cindy Williams Schrauben. Hey, Cindy, thanks so much for being with us. Thank you so much, Jed. I appreciate it. I had a great time. Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Dr. Peter Salerno. He'll be here to celebrate a really important book. It's called Fit for Off-Duty. It's a book for adults, especially adults who may be firefighters or first responders, or may be a family member related to a first responder. First responders, they deal with trauma every single day in their life, and it takes a toll on them personally, professionally. It also takes a toll on the family. Dr. Peter Salerno, he comes from a firefighter family.
he wants to help those families, and it's a fascinating conversation. You don't want to miss it. It's the next episode of the show. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. I want to start by thanking Cindy Williams Schrauben, our guest. Please be sure to check out This Could Be You. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.